In this week's Motor Week, Richard Hammond compares two of the hottest hatches around, the 206 GTi from Peugeot and a pretender to the throne, the Proton Compact GTi. Plus, Royle is in France, driving the latest in a long line of distinguished touring cars from BMW's 3 Series. And Ken Gibson gives us his version of a French Revolution when he drives the multifaceted Citroen Pluriel.
The Peugeot 206 GTi, the latest of the breed from the past masters of the hot hatch genre. And if heritage is anything to go by, then this should be just about the best you can buy. But what if you want an alternative to a mainstream GTi? Something a little bit different, something that'll stand out from the crowd. Well, be warned, it's a Proton. I know, pork pie hats on the parcel shelf and an old Mitsubishi engine clattering away up front. So to make up for its perhaps rather down-market sounding badge, they've fitted it with 2 badges. And the second badge says Lotus, which isn't that surprising really when you consider that Proton own Lotus. So they've let the British sports car supremos loose on fettling their GTi. But have they done enough to challenge what Peugeot at least will tell you is still the original, the Grand Master, the benchmark of hot hatchery? It may well be able to trace its line directly back to one of the original small hot hatches, but the 206 GTi feels about as big as the factory that they built the original 205 in. But that said, once you are in here, it's a very nicely understated cabin. It does feel very well designed. There's lots of nice touches. I do like the sporty little instrument binnacle and the little chrome gear lever. So why, oh why do we have a reappearance of this awful textured plastic? It looks cheap and feels nasty and tacky. I do like the suede effect and leather though. Very sporty. I can remember the first time I saw a 205 GTi 1.9 and I was amazed that there could be an engine so big in a car so small. Well, today's top spec GTi from Peugeot now boasts a 2-litre engine and it'll dash from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 8.4 seconds. The ride is soft and comfortable and the controls are very light and easy to use. But hang on, this is a hot hatch. The old 205 felt like a go-kart. This begins to feel perhaps a little too grown up. The light steering could be seen to be remote and rather distant, and whereas in the 205 you felt every bump and ripple in the road through the controls, the brakes in particular on the 206, though very effective, could be operated by somebody else's feet. Overall, the 206 GTi, comfy, oh yes, very. Too comfy, well, possibly for some. And the price for all this comfort? Well, today's hot hatch is a long way from yesterday's, not only in size of the car, but also the bill, £14,000. You've got to admit, when you look across at the Proton, it is a bit of a surprise to discover that it is a Proton. And there's another surprise inside as well. Okay, so it's a little bit garish perhaps, but come on, this is a GTi. It's a hot hatch, that's what we want. If you want subtle and understated, go buy a Rover. If sporty little touches are your thing though, this has got to be the place to be. It's got every single styling cue you could find on a hot hatch. Chrome gear knob, little chrome bolts and rivets everywhere, little chrome pedals down here by my muddy feet, and these spectacularly comfortable Recaro seats. Now this is more like it. Less powerful the Proton may be, with only 1800cc to the 206's 2-litre, and though on paper it is faster, it'll dash from 0 to 60 in 7.8 seconds, I'm not convinced. But if it's the experience we're after, then this really will bring out the hooligan in you. For a start, the Proton is loud, very loud, most of it through road noise. The steering is fast and direct with plenty of feel, and the same can be said for the brakes. Once you discover that most of the power is actually in a narrow mid-range band, then it's very easy to exploit it. It might be less luxurious than the 206, but those ultra-comfortable seats provide just the support you need on a longer journey. Mind you, if you are about to tackle a longer journey in the Proton GTi, be warned to keep an eye on the fuel gauge. It's got a range of about 25 miles, so you'll be hopping in and out of those seats a lot. It's not because the Proton is thirsty, it's just because the tank is tiny. If you're waiting for me now to tell you that the Proton costs £4.5 less than the Peugeot, don't, because it doesn't. It actually costs £500 more. And it's a mark of how far Proton have come as a manufacturer, that their hot hatch can be compared to Peugeot's without it being laughable. Even more so that it can cost more than the Peugeot and still be taken seriously. Cynics might tell you that it's also a mark of what's happened to Peugeot, that their hot hatch can be compared to any Proton at all. In fact, the 206 is as large, as comfortable and sophisticated as you could possibly want from a car in its class. The baby Proton is loud, brash and raucous in every inch a hot hatch in the traditional sense. And if you're still having a little bit of a snigger, here's one further little bit of food for thought. Think about this, the Talbot Horizon and the Cortina. Pretty humdrum cars, neither of them worth peanuts second hand until Lotus became involved. Then, hey-ho, instant classic. Who knows?
Well, it may be winter, but here in the south of France, it's another glorious day. Blue skies, sunshine, temperatures of some 60 degrees or so. So what has forced us to come all this way? Well, it's a new car. Now, when BMW launch a new model, not for them to rush out that model with all the variants available straight away. They like to dangle a carrot or two. They bring out the saloon first and you get the feel and the like and the look of that. And then they bring out the coupe version. So what's next on the list for the BMW 3 Series? Well, it's this, the new 3 Series Touring. So if my arithmetic is correct, this is model number 3 out of probably 5, with the convertible and M models still to come. Now when the 3 Series Saloon was launched last year, it unsurprisingly received universal acclaim. It's selling well and the coupe is selling well too. So what do BMW expect with the Touring? Well, big things. They're anticipating an increase in sales of some 70% over the previous Touring model, which will be no mean feat. The very first BMW Touring was brought out way back in 1971 and managed, well, quite respectable sales at the time, even though it was a radical design. It was 20 years later that the Touring re-emerged again, and now we're on to a 4th generation, and a very desirable car it is too. As ever with cars, first impressions count, and the 3 Series Touring, quite frankly, doesn't disappoint. It's a very, very stylish car with some very nice features on it. For instance, we've seen this before on the 5 Series, but it comes to the 3 Series now, the split rear tailgate, useful for just throwing a few bags into the back there, and of course that goes down and the whole thing opens up here. Now the entrance into the load area here has been increased by some 10 centimetres. Doesn't sound a lot, but could make a difference if you're carrying bulky items. And total capacity back here has also been increased to 1,345 litres, which is, say BMW, quite a bit bigger than the Audi A4 Avantis. Ouch! Now there's also an extra 12-volt power supply socket back here in the boot too, particularly useful if you want to plug a fridge in or something like that. I mean, how many people do you know who have fridges in the back of their cars? In past years, BMW have been criticised for their lack of standard equipment. It wasn't that long ago you had to buy a radio, but no longer. The list of toys is high, including air conditioning, airbags all round, electric front windows, remote alarm, sports steering wheel, ABS, alloy wheels, and of course, a radio cassette. You get all that and more on the 318 SE and 320 Diesel SE models, with even more goodies on the 328. Now, we haven't come all this way to enjoy the blue skies and sunshine, nice though it is. The roads around this part of the south of France are fantastic, and this car needs to be driven. At launch, there are 3 variants of the new 3 Series Touring available. There's the 318 and 328 petrol models. BMW's new 320 diesel engine as well joins the lineup, which has had some rave reviews recently. Also joining the lineup soon is the 330 diesel. Now, I'm no fan of diesel engines, but the 330 really is a very good unit. It's powerful, it's economical, it's refined, and most importantly, it's quiet. The 318 uses BMW's well-known 1.9 engine that we've already seen in the likes of the Saloon and the Z3, to name just a few cars it's been used in. It produces 118 brake horsepower with 133 pounds-feet of torque. Now, that should be enough for most situations, but I can expect it to struggle if the car was fully laden, or if you're going around twisty mountain roads like we are today. However, it's pretty good. It just needs a bit of revving, a bit of work on it to make rapid progress. The 318 will accelerate to 60 in around 11 seconds with a top speed of 126 miles an hour. The 320 diesel is even quicker, doing the sprint in 10 seconds using its 4-cylinder turbo engine. Power is 136 brake horsepower, top speed 129 miles an hour. But of course, what you buy a diesel for is economy, and it really doesn't disappoint. 38 to the gallon urban, 60 miles per gallon extra urban, and almost 50 to the gallon on the combined figures, and that means a touring range of nearly 700 miles to a tank. Even more if you have a very dainty right foot. The cream of the 3 Series touring range is of course the 328 with that renowned 6-cylinder 2.8 litre engine, producing 193 brake horsepower with 206 pounds-feet of torque. It really is such a good unit, and of course it's quick. It will do the 0 to 60 sprint in 7.3 seconds, top speed of 147 miles an hour. The only place it might hurt you a bit is when you go to fill up at the petrol pump, because it will return on average about 28 miles to the gallon. Not bad, but compared to the diesel, makes your heart and your wallet rather nervous. The Touring is packed with safety systems like automatic stability control and traction, ABS, dynamic stability control and cornering brake control, which when braking midway through a bend, distributes the braking and applies pressure to the outside front wheel to stabilise the car and reduce the risk of oversteer. Now, for those of us who don't own a BMW and don't drive one every day, you tend to forget just how good these cars are to drive. The moment you get in it, you feel safe, you feel secure, and you know it's going to be a good drive. BMW, of course, make great play of the fact that their cars have near perfect 50-50 weight distribution, and the Touring, of course, is no exception. It handles well, it remains composed when cornering, and never feels like it's going to bite back at you for having too much fun. Well, once again, BMW have come up with a car that's very difficult to find a fault with. It's comfortable, it's stylish, it's easy to drive and a lot of fun. And it's a car that you'll want on your driveway, I'm sure of that. Prices, well, they start at just over £22,000 for the 318, 23.5 for the 320 diesel, rising to just under £29,000 for the 328. There's still a very impressive options list too, should you feel the need to be a bit different. If only BMW were a bit different from time to time. In other words, if they produced a car that was different and that we could find some faults with, but they just won't.
After the break, vive la révolution with the Citroen Royle.
I wonder if, like me, you've dreamt of a car to suit your every mood. A car that can cope with every season, rain, snow, an impossibility? Well, think again. I think I've actually found the answer. Meet the Plurial. To sum up in a nutshell, the Plurial's the family car that gets you noticed like no other. So, first impressions on the interior of the Plurial are that it's as impressive as the exterior. It's a marvellous, funky little place. Slightly futuristic, but totally practical. Great gear change. It's nice sitting position. You're sitting very up front in the car. It's comfortable. You can imagine this as being an ideal car for driving around town in. Considering this is a concept model, it feels remarkably nimble. It feels as if it's ready for the road now. Handling at the sort of fairly limited speeds we've been doing is very impressive. It seems like a pretty modern car with good road manners, very manoeuvrable. The fact that it's just slightly longer than the Saxo means it's excellent around town in the city. Power in the Plurial comes from a 1.4 engine that's fitted to the Citroen Zara, which is a lively little machine. Citroen say obviously though that it's got the option to fit a range of engines from a 1.1 Super Mini right up to a sporting one, which whets the appetite somewhat. I could see a little 1.9 sports performance level on this, or the 1.6 out of the Saxo would make this a very nippy piece of kit. Taking the entire roof off couldn't be easier, thanks to Citroen's clever design. And as the magician would say, hey presto. At the press of a couple of buttons, a small amount of adjustment at the back, the Plurial is transformed from family saloon into the funkiest little convertible you're likely to see on the road. This is just wonderful. Yes, this is much more like it. Roof down, I don't even care that it's December. I feel like the king of cool now. This really is a chic little motor. The French, when it comes to fashion, know how to make a motor car that makes you stand out. I'll tell you what I love about this. It is a really practical but funky two-seater. This is the best little sports car on the road. Tell you another thing, this car is going to be an awful lot trendier than the Beetle at an awful lot better price. I think that the Germans are about to be given a lesson in style from the French. And of course, convertibles are wonderful for posing in the sunshine. Family saloons are wonderful for taking the kids for a drive. But what happens when you want to get seriously practical? When you want to get those awkward loads in? What you need then, of course, is a pickup. Well, once again, Mr. Plurial comes up for trumps. Press two buttons, two seats go down, and hey presto, you've got yourself a pickup truck. We're now into pickup mode. We may not be talking about Americana Ford pickups, but this thing can be considerably practical, and it's a lot easier to drive, a lot more comfortable. So you've got all the driving capabilities of a saloon car and all the practicalities of a pickup, and that's what I call clever. This car is a real return to Citroen's very innovative best. It's such a clever car. Apparently it started off life as merely a styling exercise, but I think that it could well be a classic case of, out of a little mistake, they've just produced a winner. And the great news is, I can exclusively reveal that Citroen are going to go ahead and make the absolutely incredible little Plurial. Expect to see it hit the roads by the end of 2002. But what about price for this great little box of tricks? Wouldn't have surprised me, somewhere between 16 and 20,000. After all, you're getting a saloon, a convertible and a pickup. But I believe they're going to try and hit a price range starting at £10,000. Now that's the price of a Super Mini. And if Citroen managed to pull that off, I've got no doubt at all this is going to be a real French revolution.
Motor Week News. In spite of growing competition, Land Rover continued to dominate the 4x4 market. The company's best-selling model in '99 was the Freelander, with 18,000 sales, while the new Discovery celebrated its first full year in production with 10,379 sales in the UK. Things are looking better still over the next few years, with a V6 version of the Freelander being prepared, which should see the baby 4x4 ready to hit the lucrative American market at last. In next week's show, more cars that were unveiled at Detroit 2000, including Aston Martin, BMW and Chrysler. And with the craze for MPV still raging, Fiat claimed their new car is set to turn the market on its head. It's strange, innovative, and sits 3 in the front, 3 in the back. You'll either love it or hate it. It's the Fiat Multipla. Next week on Motor Week.